this is in a agora, an outdoor space where people used to just get together and try.
No, the picture itself is painted in plaster in the Sistine.
Oh, you're right. I didn't think of it that way.
But
And
yes,
we'll have to find out.
sitting around with learned men and women.
Well, and then there's Lee and me in the middle, otherwise Socrates and Plato. Plato was he was the best messenger.
I love Plato.
He's taught. So let's see what the message is today of
Okay.
holy relationship, because they had one. Let reason take another step. If you attack whom God would heal and hate the one God loves, then you and your creator have different wills, a different will. Yet if you are God's will, what you must then believe is that you are not yourself as God created you. You can indeed believe that you are not yourself as God created you and have a different will. And you do. And you have faith in this erroneous belief in a different will and see much evidence of this different will's behalf that proves you are not as God created you. And where, you wonder, in this illusion of separation, does your strange uneasiness, your sense of being disconnected, and your haunting fear of lack of meaning in yourself arise? It is as though you wandered into egoic thinking without a plan of any kind except to wander off from the agora. Only that seems certain.
Feels that way sometimes.
Mhm.
Because we are under the mistaken egoic belief that the separation was real, we think somehow that we are different from the sonship that God created. We believe that we have lost our divine birthright and that our inheritance has been taken away by a vengeful God. The ego teaches that we are disconnected from our source and have another will. The world of egoic perception was made to prove the reality of our separation and our specialness. The ego's path for the recovery of our happiness has led us on a meaningless journey that appears to have no end in sight. Due to our mistaken belief that we could be something other than as God created us, we have good reason to believe that we are lost. There is nothing wrong with us, but we do need a different plan. We need to choose again, and this time we need to follow the voice for God, the Holy Spirit.
Yet we have heard a very similar description earlier, but the description was not of you, the Christ. But still this, let me get again. Yet we have heard a very similar description earlier, but the description was not of you, the Christ. But still this strange idea of the belief in separation, which the description of a different will does accurately describe, you think is you. The strange idea is that you do not know what you truly do, and that you believe yourself to be a limited ego body with a will different from God's. Reason would tell you that the world you see through egoic physical eyes that are not the Christ, your Christ vision, must make no sense to you. To whom would bodily egoic seeing such as this send back its messages? Surely not you, the Christ, whose sight is wholly independent of the bodily eyes that look upon the world. If this bodily seeing is not your vision, what can the body show to you? The brain cannot interpret what your Christ vision sees. That's an important statement, number 7 there. The brain cannot interpret what your Christ vision sees. This, your Christ vision, you, the Christ consciousness part of your mind, would understand. The brain interprets to the body, of which the brain is a part. But what the brain says you, the Christ consciousness part of your mind cannot understand. Yet you have listened to the egoic brain, and long and hard you try to understand the egoic brain's messages.
Mind is not the same as brain. In the physical body, the brain is the physical organ that appears to control your body. The brain, being form, cannot be home to mind, which is unlimited spirit. The ego tries to tell us that we're the body and that the brain is the same as the mind. This only makes the separation appear to be real. Being spirit, any information collected by the body is not relevant to our spiritual nature.
Right
Being,
back.
being spirit, any information collected by the body is not relevant to our spiritual
Sounds
nature.
good. I'm actually in the middle of something
The
that
physical senses only deceive.
um,
They are an attempt to cloak our true spiritual existence within the physical body. Brain and mind are not on the same level. They cannot communicate with each other. They speak totally different languages that are mutually exclusive. The body references and interpretations of the brain only bear witness for the illusion of separation.
you have not realized it is impossible to understand what fails entirely to reach you. You have received no egoic body brain messages at all that you understand. For you have listened to what can never communicate at all, which is the body brain. Think then, what happens? Denying that you are unlimited spirit and firm in faith that you are something else, which you call the egoic body, this something else that you have made to be yourself becomes your sight. Yet the egoic body brain must be something else that sees and as not you. And this something else explains this egoic body brain's sight to you. Your Christ vision would, of course, render this quite unnecessary. Christ vision, being real, can be understood by our unlimited mind. The vision of Christ is beyond the egoic senses. Yet, if your spiritual eyes are closed and you have called upon this egoic thing to lead you, asking the egoic body to explain to you the world the egoic body brain sees, you have no reason not to listen to the egoic body brain, nor to suspect that what the egoic body brain tells you is not true. Reason would tell you what the egoic body brain tells you cannot be true because you cannot understand the egoic body brain. God has no secrets. God does not lead you through a world of misery, waiting to tell you at the journey's end why God did this to you.
Our true reality is spirit. Spirit level 1, which is heaven. The world of perception is level 2, which is not real. Level 2 is our illusionary world of provisional reality. And these two levels don't mix. They aren't even really connected, except through us, an idea.
Yeah.
Only the Holy Spirit is aware of both our true nature, level 1, and our illusionary dream, level 2. Therefore, only the Holy Spirit is in the unique position to make sense out of the perception of the ego body. The Holy Spirit will reinterpret the egoic perception into correct perception. Our Christ conscious self and the egoic mind do not communicate with each other. Our Christ conscious self and the egoic mind do not communicate with each other.
Holy
The
Spirit.
ego doesn't, what?
It's the Holy Spirit that is the medium between our Christ consciousness. I never got this before either. This Christ consciousness is like what they refer to as God, in that it's pure. The Holy Spirit is the one thing that bridges between our Christ consciousness, which is our direct, universal, one connection with God, and the Holy Spirit enables us to see the dream also, so that we can come out of the dream that we're in and come to our own place. I just have to jump in on this thing.
No problem.
Yeah.
Communication's purpose is to be understood. The ego's purpose is to confuse and separate. It's only because we've identified ourselves as a body that we've forgotten our nature, our true nature, as spirit. Believing we are body, we now believe the messages of the egoic thought system. The egoic thought system becomes our provisional reality. These messages of the ego body brain are only intended to deceive the mind into the mistake that the mind or spiritual essence is actually the body's brain. We need to give all of our perceived experiences over to the guidance of the Holy Spirit for his correction.
In essence, it says that the ego constantly broadcasts fake news. It's a hoax. It's not real. Anytime we get any sense that reason is starting to sort out what's going on in the world, what could be secret from God's will? Yet you believe that you have secrets from God. What could your secrets be except another will that is your own will apart from God's will? Reason would tell you that this belief you have, a separate will from God's will, is no secret that need be hidden as a sin. That's huge. This belief that you have, this belief you have, a separate will from God's will, is a mistake indeed. That's what the book's been telling us all along. Sin, the whole idea of sin is just a mistake. Let not your fear of sin protect this belief that you have a separate will from God's will. Keep the mistake from correction, for the attraction of guilt is only fear. Here, in fear, is the one emotion that you made, whatever it may seem to be. Fear is the emotion of secrecy, of private thoughts, and of the body. Fear is the one emotion that opposes love, and fear always leads to sight of differences and loss of sameness. We're different from them. Fear is the one emotion that keeps you blind, dependent on the egoic little s self you think you made to lead you through the world, the emotion of fear made for you.
Before the belief in separation, there was only love. From the belief in separation arose the idea of fear, which was quickly followed by its cousins, sin and guilt. Sin, guilt, and fear are the unholy trinity which forms the bedrock for the egoic thought system. One of our earliest fears was the original doubt that God's Son could not know what he is, that there might be something that was not God. This doubt birthed our world of perception. With the loss of certainty of what we were, knowledge was also misplaced.
Your sight, the vision of Christ, was given you by the Creator, along with everything that you can understand, which is truth. You, the Christ, will perceive no difficulty in understanding what Christ's vision tells you. For everyone sees only what he thinks he is. And what your sight would show you, you, the Christ, will understand because Christ vision is the truth. Only your Christ vision can convey to you what you, the Christ, can see. Truth reaches you directly without a need to be interpreted to you. What needs interpretation, which is perception, must be alien. Nor will perception ever be made understandable by an interpreter, which is the ego, which you cannot understand.
Our ego and our Christ conscious mind cannot communicate with each other. Illusions and truth are not on the same radar screen. A dream exists only in the private world of the dreamer. It has no reality in the real world, which is the shared mind of God. The Christ conscious mind knows only the truth of the real world. While we're under the influence of the egoic thought system, we appear to be only aware of the dream separation. During this dream state, our Christ conscious part of the split mind appears to be asleep. Thus, our Christ consciousness is aware of the dream itself.
Aware.
Oh, thank you. Is unaware of the dream itself and is unable to wake the dreaming egoic mind. That is really important. That's probably why I slipped up in my reading of it. Our Christ consciousness is unaware of the dream and it's unable to wake up that dreaming egoic mind. That's the one that's living in the nightmare that all of us see in front of us, this physical reality. The Christ remains in communion with Father. It's also right here in this moment. Although its communication seems to be drowned out by the voice of the ego. It's a loud screamer. It's all I could hear for the first 45 years of my life. The Holy Spirit's job is to help us silence the ego long enough for the voice of God to be heard.
Shh, 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 just listen. Shh, 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 just listen. Be still and know the voice of God. Or be still and know God is.
Enlightenment does not rest on turning up the volume for the voice of God, but rather calls for the silencing of the egoic mind so that the Holy Spirit can be heard in the now.
Wow.
That seems like a great place to stop for today.
I'll say, if we could just maintain that, got it made. And the more times that we peek in and get that word peak is spelled P-E-E-K, we can have a peak experience, which is spelled P-E-A-K, which is a very famous statement by a very famous, well-known yoga adept expert from the last century. But that's another story.